Maggie called me and said, get to a television set fast. There's something happening in New York. And I went to the hotel, Chatham Bars Inn, which was a few, few blocks down the beach. And I went in there and we all watched and everything. And then I headed back to P-Town and we packed up to go to New York, but we then checked and said they weren't letting anybody in or out of New York. So we stayed there for like 3 days. And then when we could go to New York, because we lived, within walking distance of the towers. I immediately walked from my house down to Ground Zero to kind of see what was there, but you couldn't see anything. I really couldn't see anything because it was all blocked off. And the police had a cordon, wouldn't let you get any closer than Greenwich Avenue and Chambers. And so, I was standing there and I'm thinking, wow, I want to help. What can I do? And at some point, I just raised my camera to kind of see what you could see, which was nothing. And some cop behind me whacked me on the shoulder and said, "No photographs, buddy. This is a crime scene." And I said, "What do you mean it's a crime scene? This is the street." And she said, "No, the crime scene, the mayor says no photography allowed." I said, "That's ridiculous. That's the crime scene in there. This is a public thoroughfare. I'm a citizen. I have my First Amendment rights. I can take a picture out of here. You can't tell me what to do." She said, "I'm going to take your camera if you take." I said, "You're not going to take my camera. I know the law very well, probably better than you. And you have no right to take my camera on a public thoroughfare. I pay for this thoroughfare and I pay for your salary." So she stopped back and I said, "So when is the press going in?" And she said, "I told you, Mayor Giuliani said, no photographs allowed." There's the press corps. And she looks up the street and there's the press corps tied up with yellow police tape. And I'm thinking, oh, the press isn't going to go in. I got to figure a way to get around Mayor Giuliani. So I started to work the few people I knew in government. And one of the people was a guy named Adrian Benepe, who comes to the Cape sometimes. And he was the commissioner of New York City, of Manhattan's parks. And I knew Adrian since he was a kid. And he lived 1 block from me on West End Avenue. So I called him up. And I said, "Adrian," and I explained what it is. And he knew that I'm a straight arrow. I'm not in it for the money. I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, "Meet me in the morning. I'll take you down to Ground Zero, and I'll get one of my Smokies to take you in." So this guy takes me there. I get a ranger, a park ranger, looks like Smokey the Bear. Got the hat on with the pointy top and everything. And I'm wearing shorts and sneakers and a T-shirt like that. And I walk into this hellhole. And the Smokey says to me, "Okay, buddy, you're on your own." They gave me a little badge that said New York City Parks Department. And so I'm standing there amidst this chaos and smoke and machines and noise and all this craziness. And I think, oh boy, I need a hard hat. And I look around and there's a hard hat hanging on a nail on a plywood wall in the middle of nowhere. And I walk over and no one's taken this hard hat. So I lift it up and it says on the front, NYPD. I put it on. And then I went and I got myself a pair of gloves and I got a respirator. And then I got a pair of boots because they had piles of boots they were giving. And within a few minutes, I was outfitted and I had my badge. And I started working in there. And I would get thrown out day after day after day. And I would have to take my badge and go around the other side and come back in. And then I noticed that all the badges were printed on construction paper. Pink, blue, green, yellow, gray. So I went back to the studio. I bought a package of construction paper. I scanned the badge and I printed it out with new dates for every week. And I had this forged badge, which would get me in but I would still get thrown out. And then one night, I met a platoon of detectives, 11 detectives from the arson explosion squad. And those guys, when I confronted them and they heard my story that I was doing this for history, but I was being thrown out every day, the head guy, the lieutenant, said, "Oh no, we got to save this for our kids and our grandchildren." He said, "We're going to protect you. Fuck the mayor. We're going to take care of you. Don't worry." And so they gave me their cell phone numbers. I gave them mine. And the guy said, "Anybody stops you, you call me. I'll take care of you." And for the next 45 days, they took care of me. And then they were relieved. They had worked 50 days. They were relieved. And I said, "What am I going to do without you?" And they said, "Oh, come with us." And they took me into police headquarters. And they had me photographed, fingerprinted, barcoded, and issued an NYPD badge that said on it, mayoral photographer. So I was now a legitimate NYPD person. When I would fly up to Boston, sometimes I would use that instead of a passport or a driver's license. I would show my NYPD badge, and they would always say to me, "Are you carrying, sir? Have you got a gun on you?" Anyway, it was one of the most remarkable, memorable things that ever happened